Did you know that God's Learning Channel is available on a wide variety of different platforms? For starters, GLC can be watched in parts of Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Colorado by cable or antenna. GLC is also available to watch on our Galaxy 19 direct-to-home satellite equipment throughout North America with no subscription fees. Great for viewers in rural areas with no internet connection. Our free broadcast and program archives are available via 24/7 web streaming on our website at glctv.tv. For our online friends, GLC Radio and audio podcasts are available for free streaming throughout iTunes, TuneIn, or Shoutcast on your computer or mobile device. Likewise, our YouTube channel contains hundreds of free video clips that you can easily share with your friends and family. You can also watch our live broadcast or program archives of your favorite episodes directly on your television with an affordable subscription-free device called Roku, containing thousands of channels to choose from. We urge our viewers to take advantage of these various ways to watch or listen to GLC, and we ask that you spread the word to your friends and family. We can't continue to grow without your help.
Well, welcome to the Monday's update of a new year, really. What's going on?
It's a new day. I serve the most awesome God on the planet. He rules and he reigns. Okay, so right before we started this program, this mom and I are sitting here laughing because she was telling me that she was reading out of 2 Samuel this morning. And I'm like, isn't that in the Old Testament? Why would you be reading something in the Old Testament? It's like, we really do need to get rid of the Old Testament. It's all done away with. You know why? Because there are so many prophecies in there about the Messiah coming to rule and reign as the king, not as a suffering servant. And oh my gosh, is he ever going to kick butt and take names? So we really do want to do away with that Old Testament, don't we?
Yeah, that's not love.
Okay.
We only want to hear about love and peace and joy.
Where are we going to start at?
Hearts, flowers, and butterflies. Well, we have an opening that it's actually an honorarium. Bonnet Zachary Bright, the co-founder of the world's largest Christian ministry, Campus Crusade for Christ, slipped into eternity December 23rd, 2015, about a month after being diagnosed with acute leukemia. Fueled by a desire to help others meet Christ and learn to follow him, Bonnet and her late husband, Dr. William Bill Bright, spent more than half a century leading and building Campus Crusade for Christ to its current size of more than 25,000 staff members and 300,000 volunteers working in 173 countries.
Awesome. In 1951, the Brights launched Campus Crusade for Christ at UCLA with a goal to win the campus today, win the world tomorrow. Though the campus ministry is still the largest branch of Campus Crusade, it's joined by other ministries like Athletes in Action, the Jesus Film Project, the Josh McDowell Ministry, and Family Life. Moreover, Bonnet's influence reached far beyond Campus Crusade for Christ.
Bonnet's commitment to prayer led to the founding of the National Prayer Committee, a group of leaders who seek to motivate other Christians to unite in prayer for spiritual awakening in America. In 1988, she successfully petitioned Congress to designate the first Thursday of every May as the permanent day for the National Day of Prayer. Unanimously approved by both houses of Congress, President Ronald Reagan signed the legislation into law. She then served for 9 years as chair of the National Day of Prayer Task Force. The movement today includes more than 2 million people in 30,000 observances around the country.
They did a marvelous work.
That is a legacy to leave.
It is. They'll both have many crowns to throw at Jesus' feet.
And, one thing that I think is really amazing, motivating people to pray for the spiritual awakening of America.
Amen.
We have a news article today that if it doesn't cause some people to wake up and smell the coffee, I don't think anything will. Pop, do you have a letter?
I got a letter from John in Odessa. John says, Dear GLC, Miss Amy, Mr. Al, and Mrs. Tommy, thank you so much for GLC and what it stands for. Some of your new programming is simply outstanding. Israel Inspired with Ari and Jeremy has been a real blessing to me and all of us, really.
Yeah, really. It's a great program.
The recent episode of The Shepherd's Heart on righteousness was so instructional. It constantly amazes me how anytime folks try to teach on righteousness or holiness, they are instantly accused of teaching salvation by works. I have been saved by grace, through the blood of the Messiah, and there is no other name given under heaven by which we can be saved. But it was he himself who said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And we can't and don't always do this. But if anyone thinks God does not recognize the effort, they are wrong. Well, that's outstanding, isn't it?
It really is.
Great teachings through the Word on this show. Thanks again, and God bless you folks. Your friend in Yeshua, John in Odessa.
That is a great letter, John in Odessa. You know, in the bookstore today, we received a few books from FFOZ.
Did we?
Uh-huh. And one of them is called Yeshua Matters. One of them is called Israel Matters. You want to read them in that order, but you definitely want to read those books.
Yes, you do.
I am also, at this time, reading another book put out by FFOZ because we're like pillar partners with them. We get advanced copies of everything they do. And what's really interesting is what Daniel Lancaster is talking about in this book, and you didn't know this, has to do with the same thing that John has addressed in this letter.
Really?
That's right.
And keeping my commandments?
Keeping the commandments.
Wow.
Well, it's actually about the new covenant, when the covenant will actually be written on our hearts, and we'll have the Spirit in such full force with us that he'll be going, nope, walk this way, nope, walk that way, walk this way, do this, do that. Where in our hearts will be bent, really bent towards keeping his commandments.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're so fighting our flesh all the time, we don't even realize how much we fight our flesh and our rebellious attitudes towards God and what his word has to say.
That's right.
So anyway, I'll give you an update on that, but in the meantime, call the bookstore and get Yeshua Matters and Israel Matters.
Right. They're both excellent books.
Excellent books. I need to do a book review on those.
Well, my devotional today is by Francis Frangipane, and it's called Cease Striving and Know. It's time to abandon our fears and the stressful anxieties that come from not trusting in God. One title for the Messiah is Emmanuel, which means God with us. Jesus promised to be with us even to the end of the age in Matthew 28:20. At some point, we must accept the wonder and power of his promise. He is with us always. To mistrust this promise is to reject the very character of the divine nature. It's a serious sin. In the Psalms, the Lord gives us a promise for the day in which we find ourselves. He says, cease striving and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. That's Psalm 46:10. No matter what things look like now, God has decreed that he will be exalted in the earth. Not Satan, but God. Not evil, but good. Hell may have its moment, but God will win the day. All our lives we're taught to judge by what our eyes see and our ears hear. To do so is perfectly rational. The only problem is that when our decisions are based only upon our senses, we lose the perspective and wisdom of God. The living God not only sees the end from the beginning, in a heartbeat, he can change the world we see into something that is full of redemption and grace. God's word tells us to focus on whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good report. If there's any excellence and if anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. And that's in Philippians 4:8, and you need to write that down and put it on the refrigerator and memorize it. You see, fear is the magnifying lens that exaggerates what it looks like. what it looks at. The devil is a master illusionist who uses fear to take our eyes off the Lord. The result is that our stress level increases, and anxiety brings death into our world. Indeed, the more we talk about what's wrong, the less we see what's right and good in the world. Again, the Word tells us, in repentance and rest you will be saved. In quietness and trust is your strength. That's Isaiah 30, verse 15. Be quiet. Wait upon the Lord and compose your soul. Don't let your unbelieving words deplete your spirit, for the more you talk, the more peace you lose. Keep your soul focused upon Christ the Lord. Those who believe enter his rest, and from the place of rest we can hear his voice. If you know who God truly is, anxiety will fade into trust. Therefore, cease worrying. God cares for you. Those who trust him have peace that surpasses all understanding. Talk to the Lord and then quietly listen. As you do, your spirit will soar and your heart expand and ascend into his presence. It's been truly said, fear is the dark room where Satan develops our negatives. Therefore, renounce fear. Divorce anxiety. Beloved, the Lord is good. Trust him with your battle. Yes, it's time to cease striving and know that he is God.
I never heard that before. Fear is the dark room where the devil develops our negatives.
Isn't that cool?
It is really cool. I really like that.
I do too.
I don't know where I've been, but
First time I heard
I
it.
do know that faith moves God and fear moves the enemy.
Absolutely.
And it is like the enemy takes a magnifying glass. It's like that's what fear is. It's a magnifying glass. Say that there's a spider here on the desk, and I'm afraid of it. All of a sudden, there's a magnifying glass, and it's not just a little teeny baby spider anymore. It's this huge tarantula. Okay, so this first article, really great news, came from the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters. The IRS has backed away from that controversial proposal by which 501c3 organizations could send the agency Social Security numbers and other personal information about donors who give gifts over $250. This rulemaking set off intense alarm bells across the charitable sector last month. Many expressed concern about security risks, scams, and new administrative burdens, as well as the possibility that providing such donor information could quickly move from being voluntary to mandatory. In the Federal Register this week, the IRS acknowledged that it had received numerous comments and, quote, many comments expressed significant concerns about donee organizations collecting and maintaining taxpayer identification numbers for purposes of the specific use information return. Accordingly, the notice of proposed rulemaking is being withdrawn.
Hallelujah.
End quote. And a special thank you from everyone here at GLC to everyone out there who let their voices be heard on
Yes.
this issue.
Amen.
Absolutely.
We are praising God.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen.
We win, we win. Okay. This next article is a combination of 4 different articles, 2 of which are from the NRB, 1 of which is from the ACLJ, and another one from the Associated Press. All of them connected to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion provider, just got a substantial raise in taxpayer funding, yet is serving fewer and fewer women. The abortion giant builds its reputation on the supposed care it provides women, but pads its bank accounts from abortion. Planned Parenthood's latest annual report shows that it took in more than, get this, $553,700,000 in taxpayer funding. That's a nice 5% increase in taxpayer funding, while providing 11% fewer services. The bottom line? Planned Parenthood got a significant raise for doing less work.
As Life News notes, It appears that Planned Parenthood is having an increasingly difficult time getting customers of any kind through its doors. Indeed, the 2,500,000 patients Planned Parenthood saw in 2014 is the lowest annual number reported by Planned Parenthood since 1998. A quick look at the numbers contained in its report shows that the number of so-called services Planned Parenthood provides to its customers fell from 10.6 million in 2013 to just under 9.5 million in 2014. This represents an 11% drop in services by Planned Parenthood.
In fact, Planned Parenthood's own report shows nearly a 25% drop in non-reproductive health care services provided to women. That's staggering. Yet Planned Parenthood has had no trouble exploiting its abortion-centric business model to bilk the taxpayer of millions more dollars. While the taxpayers were forced to increase funding for an organization performing fewer services to fewer women, Planned Parenthood's own supporters reduced funding for the organization by nearly 10%.
Last summer, horrific videos were released which exposed that the abortion giant sells baby parts. As the American people became aware of Planned Parenthood's true business model, built on the backs of aborted babies, they're less and less likely to willingly fund this organization. The American taxpayer, on the other hand, has no choice, at least up until now. It's time for the blood money to end.
Amen.
Finally, last Wednesday, the House of Representatives advanced a bill that would in large part pull government funds away from abortion providers like Planned Parenthood, as well as repeal much of Obamacare. It's the first time ever a piece of pro-life legislation has a legitimate chance of landing on President Obama's desk. It's an important first step in a long fight to stop increasingly giving more and more of our tax dollars to big abortion.
Senate Republicans passed it last month using a complicated legislative procedure known as budget reconciliation. So now that it's passed Congress, the legislation moves to President Obama, who almost certainly will kill it with his veto pen. Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, Republican from Wisconsin, declared that they are fulfilling a promise and creating a path for the future. Quote, "We will not back down from this fight to defend the sanctity of life and make quality health care coverage available for all Americans," he said.
As she delivered the first weekly Republican address of the new year, Representative Vicky Hartzler from Missouri stated, "The point of health care is to preserve and protect life. That's why this bill stops taxpayer funding for abortion providers. The people have for years asked Congress to stop sending taxpayer dollars to Planned Parenthood, especially after we learned last year of the disturbing practices Planned Parenthood officials engage in, such as harvesting and selling baby body parts. These actions, along with the hundreds of thousands of abortions they perform each year, show a blatant disregard for human life."
Many Republicans stepped up their criticism of Planned Parenthood after anti-abortion rights activists released underground a video that showed an official from the group talking about the price of fetal parts. Those horrific videos that were released last summer were a real wake-up call to America. But make no mistake, biblically, America is at a crossroads. Many Americans have known for years that Planned Parenthood considers abortion to be the category of reproductive rights. But yesterday, the issue of abortion took on a whole new role in the current presidential race when Planned Parenthood threw down the gauntlet and threw its support behind Hillary Clinton. In fact, Planned Parenthood has just become a lightning rod in the 2016 campaign.
The endorsement by Planned Parenthood's political arm marks the first time ever Planned Parenthood has waded into a presidential primary. This shouldn't be a surprise that they got behind Hillary, knowing that then U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton won the Margaret Sanger Award in 2009. Margaret Sanger, for those of you who don't know, founded the American Birth Control League in 1921, which later became the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Other recipients of the Margaret Sanger Award include former Senator Joseph Tidings for his, quote, activities related to population and birth control, as well as Canadian pro-choice advocate Henry Morgentaler, who was known for his successful efforts spearheading efforts to repeal Canadian laws restricting access to abortions.
Accepting the endorsement Sunday in New Hampshire, Clinton sought to energize her Democratic base with a passionate pledge to always protect reproductive rights, and she painted a dark picture of what women's health care would look like under a Republican president, singling out two of the top Republican contenders by name. Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and their powerful friends may be trying to drag us back to the Stone Age, but we've got our sights set on the future, Clinton said.
Cecile Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood, said that Planned Parenthood is making an early endorsement so that it can begin reminding voters about the Republican candidates' extreme positions on abortion rights and women's health. The group, get this, plans to spend at least $20 million in the 2016 campaign.
Wow.
I personally have a question about that. Where did that money come from? I'll tell you where. It came from our pockets. Cecile Richards said that we don't need just a friend, a solid vote, a supporting statement. We need a fighter.
Clinton warned the crowd that electing a Republican president would eliminate Democrats' firewall between a repeal of the president's health care overhaul law, GOP efforts to defund Planned Parenthood, and the appointment of right-wing justices to the Supreme Court. She says if a Republican wins this election and gets the chance to stack the Supreme Court with right-wing justices, together they will accelerate the move to take America in the wrong direction on so many issues that you and I have fought for, she said. I shudder to think what Republicans would do if given the chance.
And if you don't understand the importance of Hillary's statement regarding justices serving on the Supreme Court, well, this article might clarify that for you. Pharmacists, under fire from the state of Washington for refusing to dispense abortion drugs, appealed their case to the U.S. Supreme Court last week. Stormans Inc. has resisted a state regulation that outlaws conscience-motivated referrals from one pharmacy to another for the dispensation of Plan B, also known as the morning after pill. This rule, strong-armed into effect in 2007 by then-Governor Christine Gregory, a Democrat, with the help of Planned Parenthood, has been opposed by the American Pharmacists Association. Notably, the state allows referrals for numerous other business and convenience reasons.
While the pharmacists were victorious in U.S. District Court on grounds that the rule violated the free exercise clause of the First Amendment, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the decision in favor of the state. In a press release by NRB member Alliance Defending Freedom, whose attorneys are leading counsels for the pharmacists, the company's president, Kevin Stormans, stated, with more than 30 pharmacies stocking the drug within 5 miles of our store, it's extremely disappointing that the state demands that we violate our conscience or jeopardize our family business. All we're asking is to be able to live out the beliefs that we hold, as Americans have always been able to do, and to be able to refer patients for religious reasons, as the medical and pharmaceutical associations overwhelmingly recommend. The Supreme Court will likely consider later this spring whether or not to hear this case.
Wow.
If ever there was a time that the church must wake up, it's now.
It is. We were talking about this morning, and I was reminding of the scripture where God says, I set before you this day life or death, blessing or curse. So choose. Choose life with blessings, or choose death with curses. if we choose to let Planned Parenthood bulldoze its way in.
Bulldoze any more than they already have.
That's right.
Here's the thing.
We know
It's
now.
not just about choosing life for ourselves.
That's right.
It's about choosing life.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
It's about choosing life. What right do we have to kill anything? You know, no one. I watched Fox News all day long. Not one time did I hear that Planned Parenthood had gotten behind Hillary Clinton. Not one time. Something else that was really disturbing that I watched this week, and there's this big story out right now about, it's supposedly a documentary. It's a very slanted documentary about a guy who is up on murder charges again in the country saying, oh, Obama, let him go, let him go, let him go. One of the things I heard mentioned on Fox News Friday night, this creep dipped a cat in gasoline and lit it on fire. Does he deserve to live? I don't think so. The Bible commands us to defend the innocent and the helpless and to help them.
Well,
And if
one
we
thing-
as a church don't do that, we as a nation will be answering for it, I promise.
The nation will receive the curse.
And you know why I can promise that? Because I read my Bible and I know what my Bible says.
That's right.
There's one nice thing about what you two just said. I won't have to stand in judgment for GLC
That's right.
doing the right thing.
That's
I
right.
hope you don't either.
People who support GLC won't.
That's right.
And
But
I
if-
want to thank you for that. Today, as we were getting ready to do this, sometimes we can feel so alone in the message that we're sharing. Just so alone. It's like, Lord, does anybody get anything? Is there anybody out there? You know what he reminded me of this afternoon? I wasn't actually asking him about that. But he reminded me of Elijah, when Elijah ran. He ran from Jezebel. She was so wicked. And there he is out there in the middle of nowhere being fed by ravens, by the way. And he's like, I'm all alone. There's nobody but me. There's nobody but me. And God says, there are thousands that believe just as you do. Stand up and be strong. So that is our rallying cry here at GLC. We want you to know that you are not alone.
Stand up.
Stand up and be counted with us.
Be counted.
And thank you. It's
That's right.
amazing. We serve the most amazing
we
God.
do. We
I
do.
was reading, Lars Anderson suggested the other day in that program that we re-aired that everybody read Romans 8 and Ephesians 1 and 2. If you didn't follow his advice, I would suggest that you do that. I did that this morning. I was just so amazed at how many scriptures were in those 3 chapters that are so often quoted by the Christian community. It's just amazing to me. But here's something that really hit home with me today. That we were predestined to do what we have been called to do, each and every one of us. Mom, Dad, and I, we were predestined to bring the truth of Israel and the Jewish people to the church at large, even though we grew up in the church at large believing the same exact thing. All it took was one moment in time. One moment in time for Moshe Kapinski to tell Mom and Dad on the old city square, you might want to rethink what you guys are teaching. They rethought it. The course of GLC changed forever.
Immediately.
But God knew that. He knew that a long time ago when Jesus told him, when the Lord told Jesus, ask of me what you will. He says, I want the nations. I want them all. And God says, I got a plan. We're going to have GLC, God's little Coopers, and they're going to bring the truth because we need some real unity between the church and the Jewish people. We are one. We love you so much. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Bye-bye.